All right, welcome everyone. We're going to get started with today's webcast. My name is Alan Haupt with the CA Product Marketing team, and today's webcast is Integrating CA Service Management for Greater Value. I'll introduce our speakers in just a moment. I just wanted to make sure that everyone had a little bit of information about how to use the console here. If you have questions at any time during the session, just click on the Q&A button and you can put your questions in there, and we'll try to answer them as the session's going along, and we'll have a Q&A at the end as well. I'll talk to you right before that Q&A just to give you a little bit more information. So today's session is the next in the series of webcasts that we've been using or presenting that's covered how to improve your ITSM maturity and get more value out of CA service management. We've had recent sessions on change management, request management, and now on how to do integrations with CA service management. So today's speakers are Amy Chenard and Brian Poissant from we call it our SWAT team, who are sharpshooters on the products. They are Senior Principal Engineering Services Architects, and they're going to go through a pretty detailed presentation here on different ways to integrate with CASM, as well as integrations that exist in areas that you can get value out of. So at this point, Amy, I'll turn it over to you, I believe, was kicking it off, correct?
Yes, thank you, Alan. Again, my name is Amy Chenard, and I work on the Service Management SWAT team along with Brian Poissant. Together, we'll be delivering this webcast, and Brian will be on the chat, so if you have questions going through, please go ahead and ask them, and he will either answer them live for you, or we can take notes and get back to you with more information if need be. So if you own Service Management, which is our CA tool, CA Service Management, and use one or more of the bundled components, this is definitely a session for you. I'm going to call out some of the product integration points within Service Management and also external to it, and describe what they accomplish at a high level to enhance certain idle processes that you may have implemented in your environment. If you have interest in specific details on how the integrations are achieved or how we got them to work, definitely send a note on the chat, and Brian and I will either get back to you with those details later, or maybe we'll do another follow-up webcast on how to set them up. Now, although Service Management supports more Service Management ITIL processes that are listed here, this agenda is focusing on ones listed that use most of the integrations, or take advantage mostly of the integrations that we'll be talking about. Now, Pink Verify is a service offered by Pink Elephant, and it aims to objectively assess a software tool and determine if that tool will enable features against idle terminology, functionality, integration, and workflow. Our yearly review of processes listed. What this webcast is mainly about is how we actually demoed and got through the process to actually prove that the service management supports these idle processes.
Hey,
so
Amy.
Start off.
Hey,
yeah.
Amy, your voice is cutting in and out quite a bit.
It is. Oh dear. Okay.
Is that
how about if let me move my mouse closer to the microphone.
Okay.
Is that any better?
So far.
Okay. I'll also try to talk slower. So just ping me if I start breaking out and I can change my audio. So I'm going to start with incident management. And there are several ways we can automate integrations into CA Service Desk Manager for idle process support. For example, management can be supported by automated incident command line, web services, event monitoring, and CTI tools. Within CA Service Management itself, we have IT Asset Management and Service Desk Manager integration, which controls the management of assets and which CIs are available to analysts when creating the fulfillment process through Service Catalog.
Amy, we're losing you. It's cutting in and out again.
Okay, give me 1 second. Let me change my audio. Can we pause the recording for a second? I was saying that, I'm not sure how far I got, but let's start with the ways that we can integrate through incident management. And we can do that through automated incident generation, through emails, the command line, web services, event monitoring, and CTI tools. Within service management itself, ITAM and Service Desk Manager integration controls the management of assets and which assets are available to analysts when creating incidents. We support the fulfillment process with integration between Service Catalog, which can initiate incidents, and the management of certain processes when we add in process automation. And process automation, or PAM, also integrates into Service Desk Manager through the linkage of specific workflows in PAM to the ticket type categories. And this way we can support advanced approvals, changes, and even release activities. Knowledge management is mainly supported with Service Desk Manager's Knowledge Tool feature. From the Unified Self-Service interface, end users will access this interface and can search for knowledge and get returned things like announcements from Service Desk Manager, internal knowledge-based articles. When USS is integrated with SharePoint and Google, the results are returned from those as well. And one additional thing that we do when we do these certifications is we use our knowledge piece to record known errors in the environment in our knowledge-based articles, and therefore they get returned in the list as well if it's appropriate. Now, analysts who are working in the new Xflow interface to create or work on incidents have access to suggested solutions, which return knowledge-based articles and similar tickets that have been resolved. So it'll actually search through the ticket summary and return those as well as the knowledge articles. Integration with the Xflow collaboration server allows access to suggested experts for live chat assistance in the resolution process as well. Additionally, and the screenshot on the bottom left here will show it, there's something called the Research Tool Extension, which integrates into Chrome, Firefox, and Safari browsers. And this is used to return results from an external search. And this will help in resolving incidents as well, as long as analysts are using this Xflow interface. The Research Tool icon is available from the ticket detail page, and when clicked, it'll pull up a Google search result based on the ticket summary that was entered. Service Asset and Configuration Management, or SACM, is a big one, and it's an opportunity for lots of integration into service management. The CMS cannot be managed with just service management alone. It's much bigger than that. So we need to pull required information into the MDB and manage it with the CMDB tools available in service management. And for example, we have something called the GR loader. The service management CMDB is part of the CMS, and we can use it to help all the other processes become more effective and efficient by providing a consistent set of managed information regarding CIs in the environment. These CIs can come from different management data repositories, or MDRs, such as Discover tools like Spectrum or CA configuration automation, third-party tools, or even homegrown databases and spreadsheets. When information regarding those CIs is provided, the CMDB will enable analysts a common service data, which enables greater coordination across technical teams. We are able to integrate with ITAM to get a baseline of our assets as well. ITAM will have lots of asset data, and users can see these assets in different places if we're allowing permissions. So we have some security there. For example, self-service users can see any assets that are linked to them from their mobile device or even on the USS interface, the Unified Self-Service Interface on their Environments tab. This way, when they call in, and if we are able to associate maybe their laptop or their mobile phone or whatever they're owning, or even a service that they're using or consuming, we can see what might be affecting them in the environment. ITAM integration is extended through connectors to third-party discovery tools, as well as CA client automation. And as this data is consumed by ITAM, a reconciliation job will match the discovery and owned records. Those that match can initiate an update to a set number of fields to reflect the asset configuration. ITAM also provides a viewer that can drill into details in discovery data. Now, ITAM uses a shared MDB with Service Desk Manager and Catalog, and this provides easy integration with the Service Management CMDB. It allows analysts to access CI attribute details and relationships and enable the creation and maintenance of the linked relationships between the incident record and the CI. So we're pulling in incident management process here as well. CA client automation, which I've mentioned, is a discovery tool. It'll go out and discover what's on different laptops or servers in the environment, and it can be integrated with ITAM so that we're pulling that information in and making it accessible in the CMDB. ITAM will manage the incoming discovered data, and it also uses a flag on the CI record or the asset record in ITAM. ITAM calls it an asset. Service Desk Manager is going to reflect the CI record, but this flag will determine if Service Desk Manager will be able to view or modify the record. When the CI is not selected, or when the CI flag is not selected, then the Service Desk will not see it in the CI searches. If the Managed by CA ATM is selected, there will be attribute lockdown on the CI record in Service Desk Manager. And since SACM is such a central process, it does offer a lot of support to other processes, especially with the integrations we've talked about. ITAM integration with Service Desk Manager offers incident management support to enable the creation and maintenance of linked relationships between the asset record and the associated incident record. And this provides business criticality and impact indicators of failed assets. It also allows us to do a lot of reporting so we can see trending and find out which CIs or services in our environment keep failing. ITAM integration with request fulfillment and catalog will enable the creation of and maintenance of relationships between the asset records and the request record, and will allow us to support the routing of requests, the approval process, and procurement and IMAC activities. ITAM integration with Service Desk Management for change and release will enable the creation and maintenance of linked relationships between the asset records associated with a change and release records. So when we're talking about releases in service management, we're using the change object to also manage release records. And this ability will create the linkage with the asset record in each of those. The CMDB allows for multiple MDRs to provide values on CIs to the transaction work area module, which is accessible in Service Desk Manager. And the TWA is a feature that enables the reconciliation and alignment of business rules for federated data import. So not only can we do this through ITAM, we also have the ability to load it directly into Services Manager. But we have kind of like a waiting area where these things don't just go in, we can get them in and see what they might look like before we actually commit them. So now that we have access to these multiple managed data repositories and each having the potential for managing certain specific attributes of any given CI, the TWA feature allows configuration admins to review the specifics of federated data and determine which attribute data from each of the MDRs will be added to the CI record. And this can be automated through the GR loader. This is a sample screenshot of what is available under the samples directory of Service Management. NXRoot is the install directory for Services Manager. And if you go under samples, you will find a lot of things that are helpful. And one is a folder called GR Loader, and you will get an XML and an Excel sheet example. This is the Excel sheet, where it will tell you, here's how to fill it out in order to run the GR Loader commands. And you can see there's an example command here. This is showing what will happen if we actually run the command. If I were to fill out some of the spreadsheet, and I've got 4 servers listed here, and I run the GR Loader command, it will pop those records into the CI transaction module for the TWA, which is available in Services Manager under the Administration tab. So that's just a look of what will actually happen if you run it. So how do we prevent these or any unauthorized updates or addition of an asset record? The Configuration Audit and Control Facility, or CACF, is a module which is included with Services Manager, and it allows for this kind of control as it facilitates the prevention of changes or updates being made to an asset record without a corresponding change record. So if you're following change management processes and you know you need to update a service, you probably know what needs to be done to that service. And using these change specifications, we can define ahead of time what needs to be done. In this example, we have a managed attribute called cost center on a CI, and we have a planned value. Now, we will double check to make sure that the planned value is what was actually done. If an incorrectly executed change or rogue change occurs, which is also referred to as a variance, CA Services Management has rules to define if we can accept that new value, or if we're going to create an incident because it wasn't supposed to happen, or if we copy the data into the TWA for later processing. So you determine, based on what your business process is, what needs to happen when things change in the environment that shouldn't have. This change verification lets an asset administrator also perform some things, some tasks that they might have to do. One is the authoritative MDR updates, which specifies that MDRs can only update certain CI attributes, providing attribute level control. So I might say, go ahead and you can go ahead and add a little description or notes to my CIs, but nobody touches the IP address, nobody touches the MAC address or anything that needs to be locked down. So I'm adding controls over certain attributes on the CI record. If a rogue change detection is discovered, then we manage what happens when there's no change orders that exist. So if there was an update to a CI, but there was no change order, what do? We might allow it, we might disallow it, we might raise an incident. And the change verification process automates the verification that the change order was executed correctly after the implementation phase. This was talked about in a lot of detail in John Weston's presentation on CACF back in December. And my final comment on SACM ends with the visualizer. Access to the visualizer is delivered as part of Service Desk Manager, and specifically can be used to enable the display of CMDB information that came from all of these sources that we're talking about, whether it's from Spectrum, CACF, ITAM, maybe it's service catalog related. The CMDB information in a model and map format can really help an analyst graphically review impacts in the environment, potential root causes, and as well as enhance the CAB's ability to review potential impacts to a change might actually have on the infrastructure. Now, change management is next. Requests for change will most likely require different workflows to support the different kinds of changes. And this is whether we're talking about emergency, standard, or normal changes. Each type of change typically we'll call a different workflow, different approvers, different timeline, and we use the integration with PAM to deliver most of these advanced workflows to support the change life cycles. There's also classic workflow, which is a more linear, GUI-based, easy workflow, but sometimes we need to do what-if scenarios, and that's where PAM comes in and really adds a lot of power. There are many sample workflows that are shipped with the service management solution to get you started with PAM. Integration with the CMDB, as I've mentioned, enables the creation and maintenance of linked relationships between change records and associated CI records. When we're talking about incident management, it's a one-to-one relationship. With the change records, it's a list, so you can actually add more than one CI to your change record. It also facilitates access to CI attributes and relationships to enable this change assessment and authorization, and that's all done through the change record. Down at the tabs at the bottom, if you scroll through them, you can see things like impact analysis to make sure there's not more than one change scheduled for the same time on a CI. And the relationships with the CIs, including customers and facilities, can be used to show impact and risk across the business. There's an idle content pack, and if this is implemented in your environment, you will see an attribute called business criticality, and this is used to set the level of risk to the business if something happens to a CI. PAM integration can also facilitate release and deployment activities. These activities may include scheduling, a deployment, authorization is managed through the change management and services management, and even integrations into tools like Harvest can be accomplished using PAM as well. For event and availability management support, we rely heavily on integration into, in our case, Spectrum, which is with a network discovery tool. If you don't have Spectrum, other third-party tools will also work. And with discovery tools, we typically get an understanding of what our network looks like, and we use that information to bring in necessary data and make it available to analysts through the CMDB. And most likely we don't need everything that Spectrum knows about, but we need to know enough about what's going on. Now, we have to determine if our processes will allow us to create CIs on the fly, how we're going to reconcile them, if we need to attach them to incidents, if we need to leverage CACF rules. For example, with Spectrum, we can go ahead and let it automatically create an incident, and at that time, it can relate a CI to that incident. And we can manage that through the CACF events after the fact, after the incident is resolved if we need to. You could build your services and related network pieces out using tools like CA Service Operations Insight, which allows a view of the business service performance. And it uses available connectors to bring that data into the CMDB. And once that happens, we can leverage the visualizer for root cause or impact analysis. The integration that we used for Pink Verify was between Spectrum and Service Desk Management, and this allowed us to show a couple of things. One was how to optimize service availability. With CA Spectrum Infrastructure Manager, it consolidates event data into the single dashboard, into the Spectrum dashboard from both infrastructure and application management tools. And I'm talking about things like eHealth and maybe I think anything else that will come into Spectrum. It will take those events, that event data, and put it together so that we're not blasting the service desk with a bunch of duplicate incidents. It also allowed us to show how to improve IT staff efficiency. The integration between CA Service Desk and CA Spectrum is bidirectional. When a managed object in Spectrum generates an event, whether it's warning or violation, an alarm is raised in Spectrum, and we can flag for an incident to be created in Service Desk Management when certain alarms are picked up. And when the incident is generated, Service Management will check our Common Registration API, or CORA. And based upon the logic that is built into CORA, if it is determined that the CI does not yet exist in the CMDB, a new CI record can be automatically generated. CA Spectrum has the out-of-the-box integration with Service Desk Manager that allows infrastructure fault alerts to create and update Service Desk incidents. This way, we're seeing it in Spectrum, creating it in Service Desk Manager, and then whether it is closed or the alarm is cleared in Spectrum, it'll close the incident or it'll go the other way. So if in Service Desk Management, the analysts resolve the incident, it will close the alarm or clear the alarm in Spectrum. When an incident in Service Desk is closed, it does pull back. I think I just talked about that. The direct integration, actually let me go back real quick. There's a screen that in Spectrum that controls the assignment of assets and configuration items, and you can either enable it or disable it. So if you're not comfortable or your process is not advanced enough to allow those CI creations on the incidents, you would just disable this until you find a way to manage the complete bidirectional integration of not just the incident creation, but the CIs as well. If there's other tools, non-CA tools, we have other ways of creating those integrations into incident management, and we can use web services, just for a couple examples, or command lines. And if you go under the NX root directory in Service Desk Management, which is the install directory, in that samples directory that I mentioned, you will find some example code for web services and even using the command line, which I've got up here, to help you generate some of these incidents and get the integration started. The Unified Self-Service Interface, which is used by end users, provides search capabilities to these end users to find services that they're looking for. And this one view here actually uses a lot of integration on the back end, and the integration is between Service Desk Manager and Catalog and PAM, and we have Service Desk Manager announcements. We have links to the contact CI records, and there's also links into SharePoint and Google as well. So there's a lot going on in this one interface, and you can tailor it to allow or disallow things. Service Catalog and Service Desk Manager also have integration out of the box, and they share the same underlying process engine, which is CA Process Automation. IT Service Management includes out-of-the-box process flows with CA process automation that can manage the entire life cycle of a service request initiated in catalog and go through various approvals and then go into ITAM and check inventory to make sure we have something, and then possibly open a change order in service desk to fulfill that service. Service catalog integrates out of the box with the CA CMDB to provide a link between the service offering and CIs in the CMDB as well. That way, when we're building out our services and catalog, we understand the underlying CIs that are supporting that service. That way, if there's an incident raised, we know what services may be affected if it's something that we need to address with a change. With the service request, if you log into catalog, this is a little screenshot of the interface that actually links the CI data in Service S with the catalog. So this is just a picture of getting the inventory checks in ITAM, passing it over into the CMDB, making it available, and using the integration to link the service offerings with the respective CIs. So Service Desk Manager, ITAM, they are facilitating the recording and linking of technical aspects of the portfolio services. So when we're talking about service portfolio management, for example, applications used, IT owners supporting the services and dependent services, if there's operating level agreements on the portfolio services or contracts and agreements, ITAM has the ability to store a lot of that information. We do have tools such as CA Project and Portfolio Management for advanced portfolio management, but we can also do a higher level management of portfolio services just using Service Desk Management and ITAM, because ITAM does provide the facility for recording and updating these contracts. Service Desk Manager has fields or attributes on the CI record for service transition statuses, and you can manage a lot of activities that you would do in the service portfolio just by using PAM or even the classic workflow. So recording, updating, and tracking the transition of these portfolio services, updating the status, can all be done within the configuration item. And we do have some CI family and classes that support service portfolio records. All changes to a service, such as lifecycle status, are logged on the versioning tab inside of the CMDB in the CI record. And this tab would display and manage change history for the service and associated snapshots, milestones, and other views. If you have CA PPM, which is a more advanced portfolio tool, CA PPM can initiate change orders into Service Desk Manager to schedule recovery testing or service transitions or whatever you're doing in your portfolio process. We can also initiate ideas from Service Desk Manager change requests into PPM, and this is done using the classic workflow or even PAM process to call ZOG for that integration. When we do have PPM and Service Desk integrated, we can track incidents that have been created against projects, and this provides visibility for whatever's going on in the portfolio management world. So we're identifying areas that may require additional support. And we're also defining a list of services that are in the pipeline that are about to be released and maybe are about to be retired, so that analysts that are using the service desk can actually see what's going on. So that is all I've got. That's how we got through at a high level, the tools we use to integrate to get through our PINK certification. And if there's more details that anybody needs, please let me know, and maybe we can do a follow-up webcast. So with that, Alan, I'll hand it back to you.
Thanks, Amy. Thanks a lot. Thanks for that information. What we'd like to do now is to run through any questions you have, try to help answer those questions. There's a couple, I believe, that are on that have been submitted, but make sure you go to the Q&A button up at the top right there and click on that and enter a question, and I guess we'll take these, and if we haven't answered them already, we'll answer them online. The other option you have is to hit #6, and we can then you can ask your question. That'll unmute you, and you can ask your question to us directly. So we'll give you a few seconds to type in your questions, or hit #6, and you can ask us directly. So I had one that I'm just going to wait for them to show up here online. There are some coming in. I had a question that was sort of a general one, and that was with the different types of means of integrating that you talked about up front early, Amy, and I guess, Brian, you might want to answer this one too. You mentioned email, command line interface, SOAP, REST web services, and some others. Do you have any suggestions on when you would use one of these over another? You know, is it based on the type of integration you're doing and what feature you're working with or capability you're working with? So anything you could shed light on there.
Yeah, the first thing, oh, go ahead, Brian. You want this one? I'll let you.
That's all good.
Your turn to talk, buddy.
One of the biggest concerns or things you want to think about when you're looking at integration is the criticality, the business criticality of the integration. In other words, how robust do you need this to be? Many of the integration points are what we affectionately call fire and forget it. In other words, I'm going to fire off a notification or an email. Think of it as an email going out to another product. You don't know if email actually made it. You don't know if the product actually executed something against that email, et cetera. And fire and forget it methods of integration are quick, easy, and pretty low-hanging fruit to execute. However, in many of our business critical integrations, you want to use something that's a little bit more robust, whether that's a pub/sub message bus or whether that's REST client APIs and whatnot. That's really the delineator between the different types of integrations. Is it something that has to be tracked from beginning to end to ensure that the integration executed, or are you happy enough to say, look, this is just, you know, notification of wanting to do something, and if it fires, great, and it does that 98% of the time. If we lose 2%, that's okay. Generally want to just figure out what level of robustness you need for your integration. The more robust that you need it, generally I tend to use the APIs, and you have to write your, if you will, robustness into the API, into the integration that you're constructing. Did I totally miss the subject, or is that?
No, you hit my question. I would leave it to the practitioners out there if there's any further drill down on that one.
I see that Roland asked, will Jasper Report integrate under SVM? The answer is yes, to an extent, yes. We're working on that for any 17.1. It's going to be one of the apps, if I'm not mistaken, right, up in the new app section for 17.1.
That's correct.
So yes, that's a big yes.
Any other questions? I see Brian's been answering some of them as we've been going along. You can all see those.
There's a. Go ahead.
Yes. Question about the PPM service desk integration. If the Zog client's been deprecated, what method should we use to, whether it be take ideas from PPM and create change requests in service desk, or if, let's say, we want to feed catalog into PPM to create an idea through catalog, what method would you guys recommend that we go about?
I mean, the Zog integration is still going to work. While they deprecated it, the reasons for deprecation centered more along the lines of supportability than anything else. Just like, in service desk, support for spell is really, really, really limited, if at all, in existence. It's not that it doesn't work, it's that it's really, really difficult for us to support it on an ongoing basis. So at this point, I expect your Zog integration to continue to work through the API and whatnot, but ultimately, you might be better served going through an Automic or a PAM-type integration, wherein you can track each and every step and, again, raise your own errors, raise your own capabilities, and add to it as you go forward. I don't see anyone standing up and saying, hey, you have to get off the Zog client right now. I have not heard that.
My understanding is because we're new to trying to do this integration, if we're looking to set up, from what I'm seeing, the Zog is a third party which we have to pay for. So is there anything, if we already have PAM, we already have all these other tools, is there anything from using what we have now without having to pay for a third party that we can integrate across?
Not without a level of coding. I mean, even if you were to go to use PAM for automating the integration, you would still have to do a level of scripting or a level of, I would probably use the SOAP API at that point to integrate the two products. The PPM integration that was originally developed was very straightforward. I mean, it was here to just basically allow you to track changes against projects. So if you need most people will do that as a starting point, but very quickly need to move to more advanced requirements. And in doing that, you generally end up having to code something up. So if you're going through a third party to do that, I would recommend staying that course because ultimately that solution will be, fitted to your specific needs.
Got it. Thank you.
Anyone else with any questions? You can hit #6 and that'll free up your line and you'll be able to speak to us directly.
Good evening, Patrick here. I have a question on the configuration items and the CMDB visualizer. Like in network things, there is a kind of discovery capability so that you find all your network components and that you find the relationship or the interdependencies between the network components automatically. Is this also available with the configuration items and the CMDB visualizer?
The automated discovery of assets and CIs is limited.
Yes.
It would be done through ITAM, and ITAM would go out, you could do a basic WMI discovery, and it's just going to get you like Windows boxes, maybe Unix boxes, etc. It's not as robust or as full-featured as a true event management and network management system. So it would be very, very basic. Even then, the relationships and interdependencies are not discovered, short of using a separate product that comes with service management wherein you have to tell it, these are the potential integration or the potential relationships, these are the protocols I'm looking for, and if these two things have this protocol, it can be this relationship. Forgive me, I know that it was a Sindura product, but I don't know what we call it today, Alan, that can do some of that. And then that information is then loaded through loaded into the CMDB for management. And if it's in the CMDB, it can be visualized through the visualizer. Yeah. But it's a long path. You're much better off using full network management, a network management suite, and then importing the relationships and the CIs straight from that, rather than going through the multiple hops that we have to do to just use what comes with service management solution today. And that's why we support a spectrum, the OpenViews, the Tivolis and whatnot of the world.
Yeah. So one other point on this one. So we are using CA Spectrum. It's integrated with the service desk. And when an alarm is raised, a critical or a major severity alarm, a CI is automatically created in the CMDB, right?
Correct.
So if for instance, if switch A fires a critical alarm, If it's not exist already in the CMDB, a CI will be created. If, and let's say, switch B also raised an alarm on which is connected to switch A, that means that at that time the switch B will be created as a CI as well. To connect those, or to enter a relationship between the two devices, that means you need to do it manually via the visualizer. Am I right on that one?
I'm not sure you can build it manually through the visualizer. I'd have to look that one up. But I know you can certainly do it through the UI, through the administration UI. The business management relationship can be built that way. But again, it is a manual. When you get the CIs, the two switches automatically created, they are created as standalone CIs. There is no relationship automatically created, to my knowledge.
Yeah, which makes sense. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right. If there's no other questions, I will wrap things up here. Do we have one more?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Quick question regarding the JasperSoft reporting. Are we able to basically source in from just Service Desk, or can we pull in from, can I basically hook out to like Spectrum and things like that within a single JasperSoft server, like instance?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
So right now we're standing up 17 fresh.
Yeah.
And we know that JasperSoft comes bundled in. I guess really first question is, do we need a dedicated server just to run JasperSoft reporting?
I would highly recommend
okay.
If possible, yes.
Gotcha.
And I don't mean, and to be specific, I'm going to say not just a dedicated server that's a VMware instance on the same hardware, on the same ESX hardware as the rest of your system. You will want dedicated cycle to Jasper if you're seriously going to be, consuming it on a constant basis.
Gotcha. Okay.
So onward to your other question.
Second question, basically follow up to that is, actually it sounds like it's already resource intensive, so I was going to say if we could have it manage multiple applications within our CA suite, but it sounds like just dedicating it to service management is the way to go.
No, so Jasper in and of itself is what I was talking about, whether it's dedicated strictly to service management and or other data marts, or if you've got it integrated with, other Pentaho data sources or something, that's, you're going to discover what your need is going to be going forward. We recommend for Service Desk, it's Jasper running on a standalone server. We have the specs out there for that. There's also other things that you have to think about too, because there might be licensing issues for Jasper. I'm not sure. Things that we have to look at for Spectrum as well. I wouldn't run both of them off the same, at least to begin with. Unless there is a business need for that, hardware shortage or something of that nature.
Got it. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. All right. Very good. Amy and Brian, I want to thank you for the presentation today. And we do have some other webcasts coming up in the next few, in February. They're going to be focused primarily on the 17.1 release, which is coming out in the latter part of February. You'll hear more about that shortly. We do have a webcast scheduled for the 12th and the 22nd, a community webcast where we'll drill into the details of that. We do have two of them on the 12th. One that is at a time that's appropriate for Europe and Asia, and then another for North America, Latin America, and so forth. And then on the 22nd, a repeat. There's also an upgrading webcast on the 27th that will focus on how to make your upgrades easier. It was a session that was presented at CA World, so if you saw it at CA World, you don't need to see it here again unless you would like to repeat, but that will be presented by folks from our engineering group. Should be pretty good. It gets into pretty good details on how to get the most out of the upgrade capabilities we've added over the years. And then there is we have a monthly roadmap session. Hopefully you've been tracking that. We just had one, I believe, on the 23rd of this month. We have another on the 20th of February, and you can see them on the community when they are, but they are every month. There is a roadmap session for you to follow. And then also starting in February, we have a 3-month webcast series that will be done on our Bright Talk channel, and I'll put discussions or posts out on the community about these, but we're going to focus on how service management, and specifically CA service management, fits in with CA's overall messaging around the modern software factory. So if you're wanting to see how service management and service desk and the products that you're using every day fit into the bigger CA picture, we have 3 sessions on that. The first one is on the 6th of February, the 6th of March, and then the 3rd of April. I'll be putting posts on the community about these. So lots of interesting webcasts coming up. I hope you can attend those. And we want to thank everybody for joining us today. And Brian or Amy, anything to close out?
No, thanks for attending.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Alan.
Yep, thank you. Thanks for presenting, both of you. And this will end today's webcast. Thank you, everybody.